Hi, everybody. How's it going? This is Eden Maban of LightCycleAstrology.com. Welcome back to the channel, friends. Today, I'm excited to talk about Jupiter's entrance into the sign of Taurus, probably one of the most positive combinations in astrology that you could have. Jupiter spends about a year in each sign and takes about 12 years to travel through the zodiac and return to a sign. So we haven't seen Jupiter in Taurus for 12 years now. But this is a really positive thing. So we're going to take a look at why this is probably going to represent some kind of positive growth or development in a particular area of life for each of us, and take a look at the timing and go through some themes to watch for and all of that today. So before we get into it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me some comments in the comment section. I'm really enjoying some of the comments I've been reading lately. It feels like we're building a community slowly here on the channel. And don't forget, you can always go to lightcycleastrology.com if you ever want to get a reading from me. Okay, well, let's unpack this. Jupiter enters Taurus tomorrow. What is that like? Well, remember that Taurus in ancient astrology was said to be the exaltation sign of the moon. Why was the moon exalted here? The moon, among other things, loosely connects to this sense of fate or fortune, that fluctuation of fate that would rise and then fall, rise and then fall. So the moon represented, because it had a fluctuating face, but it was a light, it had this connection to this kind of way in which nothing ever lasts in life, right? We always would hope that things would sort of just be good and stay the same all the time. But usually what happens is after a while, we enter a period of difficulty. And then, have you ever heard people tell you this? Well, you've hit rock bottom. Don't worry. There's nowhere else to go but up. So life is like this. Before too long, things begin to get better again. But the ancient astrologers noticed that life had this characteristic of fate or fortune seemingly always fluctuating between something feeling good or being good, and then something being difficult or harsh, and then something rising back up to good fortune. And it never stays the same. We always want it to be up, and we never want it to be down. And really, if you think about it, the study of one's birth chart is really the study of how high the fates will bring us, how low they will bring us, what is going to be the characteristics of how high we can get, what are the characteristics of the negatives things, is it about getting sick, getting a divorce, are we going to get rich or wealthy? This was very much the study of the astrology chart or the birth chart just in general. But the moon represented that fluctuation of fate. And one thing that was noticed is that Taurus seasonally was the time of year connected to the springtime, right? It happens in the middle of springtime when life is returning. So there's beauty, there's flowers, there's animals reproducing, there's this sexual nature and fertility of desire, warmth, growth, this hope of having made it through the winter and the cold and the dark. And now we get to drink milk again, and we get to, pasture our cows on fresh green grass. And it's a time of year that is just very beautiful, hopeful, and sexual and creative. So all of those things seemed quite conducive to that time where fate seemed to be advantageous or subjectively positive. It seemed like a natural place to put the part of the spectrum where things are good, just within the notion of the fluctuation of fate or fortune. So fortune is exalted or lifted up in the springtime in the sign of Taurus. The opposite is Scorpio, where fate and karma or fortune are brought down low. And that's because we're entering a time of darkness in fall and winter. So things are dying at that time. It's not a good place for fate or fortune to be advantageous. So we have the exalted sign of the moon. The other part of this is that Jupiter, of course, out of the 7 visible planets in the ancient world, Jupiter and Venus were said to be the benefics. Mars and Saturn were said to be the malefics. Well, why was that? Okay, so here is the way we're going to set up the game board. First of all, The lights, the sun and the moon, those have special status. We're going to set those aside. They're like the king and the queen. They sort of sit on the sidelines of the game and preside over everything. Now you have 5 players left on the board. Mercury, we make him a neutral. He's just going to be the referee or the messengers between all the gods. Now you have Venus and Jupiter, Saturn and Mars. One of the reasons why they made Jupiter and Venus the good guys and Mars and Saturn the bad is because visually, Venus and Jupiter both had this bright white starlight to them, whereas Mars looked red and Saturn looked dusky brown or yellow. If you're philosophically looking for like metaphysical principles and setting up a game board of divination, you want the symbols representing something that could be good for you to be kind of maybe those bright white starlights. And the Mars and the yellow, let's make those sort of the bad things. So they didn't believe that Jupiter moving would make something good happen to us. They believed that something good happened to us because that was just the unfolding of good fate or fortune at that particular moment in time. Oh, hey, look at the birth chart. Jupiter's moving into a good sign or whatever. Now, the opposite was true. Oh, you had something bad. Maybe you got robbed or, something, you lost something or you got hurt or injured. Well, where is Mars and Saturn transiting in the chart right now? That was how they chose to represent the balance between good and bad subjectively for us. Okay, so now you get the sense that we're talking about Jupiter being one of the good guys and moving into this very pro-life kind of sign. So Jupiter connected to all things that were positive in the ancient world, such as growth, abundance, prosperity, unity, law, order, justice, sexuality, inheritance, just good luck or fortune in general. This is a pretty good thing to see Jupiter moving into a Venus-ruled sign. Both benefics coming together in this particular combination is really good. That is a little bit about why we are looking forward to this now. Let's take a look at the real-time clock, and we'll take a look at the timing of this before we get into more of the themes to watch for here. Okay, so this is happening. Jupiter's entering Taurus tomorrow at 1:20 p.m. East Coast time. So I'm using Eastern Standard Time for this. And this is May the 16th. Now, one thing we do have to note, though, is that while overall, Jupiter spends a year traveling through the sign of Taurus, and this is going to be a really positive thing overall, what happens is that initially Jupiter enters and makes a square back to Pluto at the beginning degrees of Aquarius, since Pluto is still at the very, within the first degree of Aquarius there. So initially we're going to see this Pluto-Jupiter square that takes place. And this may have the feeling of passions within you that maybe feel eruptive. It's like there's this passion to move or grow in a certain way, and it almost has this volatile, eruptive, forceful nature to it that's like you might explode if you don't get to move in that direction or express that somehow creatively. Or it could be that you might encounter attacks or opposition, for things that you believe in, but this will subside. So that's the important thing to keep in mind, is that initially this might have kind of a little bit of a darker, powerful feeling to it that may bring in a little bit of tension or stress, of course, or may have you feeling like you really need to do something that's just really powerful, and you're not gonna, you're gonna dig in like that bull, right? You're gonna really dig in and go into the center of your power, and it has that feeling right off the bat. But this doesn't last, and this actually Jupiter perfects a square to Pluto by 8:54 p.m. East Coast time the next day on Wednesday, May the 17th. And then it takes about until, let's see here, May the 30th. So the end of the month before Jupiter moves far enough away from Pluto to get out of that engagement range. So the rest of the month might feel a little bit volatile, but then we move into some better territory ahead. Now, one other thing that I did want to show you guys is that coming up on May the 19th, we also have the new moon coming through here. So let's move the clock forward. So here's the new moon coming through in Taurus. So look, we got this lineup of Jupiter now in Taurus, Mercury. Mercury has stationed and is moving direct again on his way to making a conjunction with Uranus. And then we have a new moon. So this is definitely a pretty potent and powerful end of the month. And then something else that is taking place also is that Mars is going to enter Leo by May the 20th. As soon as Mars enters Leo, Mars will make an opposition over to Pluto, and then Mars and Jupiter will also be in square. So you're going to this is going to be a pretty potent and powerful eruptive volcanic kind of end of the month. But overall, Jupiter in Taurus is going to prove to be a very positive thing. I think it's just that we have to get through a little bit of it's almost like we're shaking off the dust of something old, or we're trying to break free or break loose of something. And there's a lot of passion there about it. Okay, so that's a little bit of the timing and what's happening over the next week and the end of the month here. But let's just get back to Jupiter in Taurus, and we'll get into that other astrology one by one as it unfolds. Today, we're just taking a look at Jupiter in Taurus right now, so let's talk a little bit more about this. One fun way you can sort of pair the combinations of archetypes in astrology is to come up with caricatures. So I'll give you an example of this. Jupiter is moving into a Venus-ruled sign. So Jupiter is going to have to express his Jupiterian nature through the lens of Venus, right? And so Venus can only give Jupiter Venus kinds of things. So imagine that your friend is Venus and you're Jupiter, and Venus calls you up one day and says, "Hey, come on over, Jupiter. Let's hang out. Come over to my house. We'll hang out together." And you're like, "All right." And you go over to Venus's house. Now you're in Venus's house, and because you're in Venus's temple or abode, there is only Venus things there for you. So whatever it is that you want to do, however you express your own nature as Jupiter, you can only do it in this Venusian way because that's where you are. So you can sort of come up with a caricature idea of this. So for instance, Jupiter might say to Venus, "Hey, Venus, I want truth," right? Because Jupiter is all about truth. What is the truth? Let's find out. So Jupiter is going to say, if I'm going to be myself, while I'm staying with you, Venus, I still want to do something about truth. What kind of truth can I figure out? And Venus says, "Well, what do I have that I can give you?" And she says to Jupiter, "Well, how about truth about what you really want, right? I'm Venus. I represent everything that you want, especially in the springtime when life is returning." Jupiter says, "Great. Well, okay, let's find the truth out about what we really want." So this starts to give you the picture of the quality of what Jupiter is like in Taurus through the dignities of the sign and everything. Let's do another caricature. Okay, Jupiter is over at Venus's house, and he says, "I want law. I want order," right? Jupiter has always been connected to the law of society, the justice of society, the order of bringing things together and having things be cohesive or, kind of set up and like pro-order. And Venus says, "Well, we could join the Peace Corps because I'm Venus and I like peace. So let's do something like that." And that's great. That provides a sense for Jupiter to have some sense of law and order, and it's filtering through Venus here. So Venus says we can join the Peace Corps and be an environmentalist. It's good for the planet anyway, right? We're talking about an Earth-ruled sign. So I'm just giving kind of a silly rendition of this, but you get the sense of what it's like. Okay, let's do one more here. Jupiter is over at Venus's house, and Jupiter says, "Hey, Venus, I want to be optimistic about something. I'm an optimist. That's what I always do." Venus says, "Well, I'll give you some seeds to plant. I'll give you some beautiful dreams. So here's some seeds and here's some dreams, right, for the future. It's bright, it's warm and sunny, it's springtime, it's beautiful out. Let your imagination run wild, Jupiter." Jupiter's like, "Great, I'm going to be really optimistic about planting these seeds, and I'm going to really hope to see what grows." I'm trying to paint the characteristic quality of why this is such a positive aspect. Okay, one more just for funsies. Jupiter says to Venus, "I want to make something good grow," right? Jupiter wants to expand, the typical keyword for Jupiter, expansion, right? "I want to make something grow." I want to make something big. I want to do something, and I want it to grow and be. But I don't want something bad to grow. I'm always concerned with something that is good or fortunate, right? Because I represent those good things in life. So I want to make something good grow. Venus says, "I'll give you desire. I'll give you lust." Now, those can grow in very interesting ways. We can lust to build an empire. We can take things of the earth and we can grow them. We can till over the soil and build, bricks from the earth, or we can do anything from the earth. Everything comes from the earth. So Taurus has this very fertile quality to it where we can really build something, and we use the desire to do that. There's lust and desire in Taurus, and Jupiter is going to want to build something and make something grow with that desire and lust. So themes to watch for. Theme number 1, expect growth and development for things you want for yourself per the house that Jupiter moves into. So if Jupiter moves into your 3rd house, that's where you should expect that growth and development to come through topically. And we're going to take a look at this. Now, at the end of the video, I actually have a few fun topical significations for each of the houses here. Theme number 2, finding which ambitions are working for you and which are not. This is all about Jupiter having this hope or optimistic for something that is having a very springtime potential quality to it. But sometimes when we try something, just take a look around and you'll notice that certain things are not easily done, or it's like you ever have that frustration of trying to do something and you just keep doing it, and it's like you keep banging your head against the wall, and it's always hard, it's always difficult, and you've done it for a long time. I'm putting this as a theme because I imagine that Jupiter is not going to be representing that particular thing. So if there's something that you're doing and you're noticing it's like just ramming your head into the wall over and over again, either you'll have a breakthrough and it'll become easier during the next year with Jupiter in Taurus, or it isn't that thing, and there's something else that is easier, and maybe that's where the attention should be pivoted towards. Look for the thing that seems to be growing on its own. It's just like rain coming down from heaven. It's not something you're doing. Usually, although it might be the hard work that you have previously put in. More so, we're just talking about something fortunate coming along that has a momentum behind it. So look for that momentum. There might be something that doesn't have that momentum that maybe shouldn't get so much attention, and there might be something else that really appears to have that Jupiterian kind of momentum behind it. So I would watch for that. Okay, theme number 3, making headway towards your pole star, or discovering what that pole star represents in your life. Okay, so this one is really important, and I'm going to have to flesh this out a little bit. What would happen is that as the sun crosses the vernal equinox, the days get longer and longer. Now, the days continue to get long until we reach the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, right? The light is growing and growing and growing throughout the spring, and by the time the light gets to the end of Gemini or the beginning of Cancer, then begins the descent of light towards fall. It's still summertime. It's still the brighter time of the year, but darkness begins to grow from that point forward. So Taurus is the part of the year right in the middle of spring where the light is growing and growing and growing. Day is getting longer and longer and longer. And the ancient astrologers, astronomers, mathematicians noticed that there was the pole star. There's one star called Polaris in the night sky in the north. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And everything spins around this star. It's the only star that never rises or sets. It always stays exactly where it is. So you go out and you look towards the north. It's technically the tail star of the Little Dipper. Right there by the Big Dipper, and it's the tail star of the Little Dipper, is Polaris, the North Star. And everything in the sky spins counterclockwise around this tail star. So to the ancient astrologers and philosophers, something that didn't move. This was like almost the opposite of the moon that we were talking about earlier, where if the moon is changing her face all the time and she's moving all the way around the world, like very quickly, she represents the fluctuation of things in the world. The pole star represented the opposite. It represented something that was eternal. And because the pole star was always used for navigation because you could always count on it. And we have that theme around the pole star where people say, what's your guiding star? What's your pole star? What's your true north? So this symbolism around the sun rising and rising in higher declination as the days get longer and light is brighter and brighter every day in the springtime. Taurus is a time of year where the sun is moving closer and closer and closer towards the north, towards the highest point in declination in the sky. It reaches that highest point in declination at the end of Gemini and the beginning of Cancer, and that is as close as the sun ever gets to the pole star. But during Taurus, we're still rising up towards that pole star, and there's this momentum that rises us up, and Taurus is very much focused on that northern star. It says, what is the distant goal or aspiration for life success, for what makes us happy, for what we want, right? That's why it's a Venus ruled sign. It's what do we want, but what do we want out of life? That is what Taurus is all about. What do we want out of life? Not just frivolous wants, although sometimes it can just be like having a good time and being social. But by and large, Taurus is pretty ambitious. It has certain desires that it wants to turn the helm towards that pole star and slowly trod, like, just very steadily and bring stability of direction towards that pole star. So one theme that is really important is that as Jupiter moves into the sign that is concerned with the orientation of life towards desires of that direction, this is definitely going to be a time where there's growth or headway made towards what you want out of life. What you want heading towards the pole stars. So making headway towards your pole star or discovering what that pole star represents. Sometimes we don't know what we want out of life, a lot of times we don't. And sometimes it changes and we have to rediscover what it is, right? So I think that either for theme number 3, either we already know what we want and we're very sure about it, and this could be a time where we make headway towards that, or Jupiter might represent us finding out what it is that we really want. So that is theme number 3. Okay, now let's do something just a little bit silly here. T-shirt slogans. This is what I recommend over the next year. I'm going to try this out myself, but I think that you can make a T-shirt slogan for this whole growth and development that is about positive things in your life, because Jupiter is a god of belief and he's a god of affirmation. He likes to affirm things. He likes to say, green light, go for it, do it. You can do it. I believe in you. You got this. That's Jupiter. So you could almost have an affirmation t-shirt, or like, I'm going to call it your Jupiter in Taurus slogan t-shirt. If you are in Aries rising, Jupiter is moving into your second house. Your t-shirt might say something like this: abundant resources, right? Positive cultivation. So all I'm doing is thinking about theme number 3 and how it could topically relate based on your rising sign. So of course, it's very hard to come up with t-shirt slogans, first of all, without being cheesy or without making cheesy slogans. So, don't give me such a hard time with this, but these slogans are meant to get your wheels turning. Maybe try out making a t-shirt that says something positive about Jupiter and Taurus that is going to be just a good affirming reminder of what you can do with your life over the next year. I think that is a really positive thing to try. So if you're Taurus rising, Jupiter moving into your first house, this could be all about personal growth or new horizons, something that is beginning, the new chapter in life that is just really, really inceptual and beginning. If you are a Gemini rising, Taurus is entering your 12th house. The 12th house has this association with coming back to yourself in a healing way. So could this be breaking the chains, the chains that bind? Is you going to break something that's not good for you? Get out of a bad relationship, break the chains of an addiction or of a bad habit or of a bad mental habit. Also, Jupiter had a connection to the life breath in the ancient world. He was said to breathe life into things. So the 12th house being a place where sometimes you're by yourself in solitude. I get the sense that maybe a good positive thing of Jupiter in the 12th could be like breath and meditation work that helps you, come to a really good place. Okay, if you're Cancer rising, the 11th house is where Jupiter is moving. So your t-shirt might say abundant opportunities, right? Abundant circles of people, for instance. If you're Leo rising, your t-shirt might say success, empowerment. And that's because it's moving into the 10th house, right? So the 10th house deals with just general overall life success, a very positive place to have Jupiter moving. If you're a Virgo rising, your t-shirt might say something like, as it moves into the 9th house, it might say the love of wisdom, philosophy, right? The philosophia, the love of wisdom, right? That 9th house connection to something higher virtuous, higher moral. It's like you're moving, a growth towards moving into a higher plane of existence based on principles or what you believe in yourself. Or it might just say travel. Maybe this is a time where you're just going to be really traveling to expand horizons. Abundant meaning. That's another slogan your t-shirt might say. For Libra rising, Jupiter's moving into the 8th house. So this could be growing symbiosis. Now, I will admit this one was a little bit more difficult to come up with like a slogan for, but it could just simply say symbiotic, right? The 8th house has this connection with how we network or pull resources together. This could be like positive symbiosis, getting together and pulling resources together and being a part of something bigger that is positive, right? If you're Scorpio rising, Jupiter moving into the 7th house, the place of marriage and partnership, right? So this could be that typical happy wife, happy life, or happy husband, happy life. It could say that, right? Or it could just say abundant love. This is a year of abundant love, meaning all kinds of relationships, friends, partnerships, business relationships, social life, all kinds of positive things for the 7th house. If you're a Sag rising, Jupiter moving into the 6th house. Now, this is typically a bad house, but it has to do, again, with maybe getting an alleviation from something that is not so positive. So could this be big healing? Could this be your year to really make some personal advances toward personal health or physical health? Could just be all of that hard work that Jupiter is going to bring in. Your t-shirt might say, fruit of my labor. I'm working my butt off, but I'm getting something from it, and it's positive, right? Capricorn rising, Jupiter moving into the 5th house. Work hard, play hard. Very Capricorn risings. I know Capricorn risings are always got that nose to the grindstone, a lot of us. So, or a lot of them. So, but this is moving into the 5th house of joy and recreation. So this could be the work hard, play hard theme on your t-shirt, or it could be creatively abundant, right? An abundance of imagination and creativity with how you can do things in the year ahead. Aquarius rising, Jupiter moving into the 4th house. Might your t-shirt say prosperity house, right? This is the place of home and family, of physical property. So is this abundant heritage, right? Is this something to do with the family or the ancestry or things like that, heredity? So is this like abundant heritage? Am I having a new baby or learning more about myself, my roots or my connection to my lineage or something like that? Am I buying property? But whatever it is, it's prosperity in the 4th house. It's prosperity house, abundant heritage, something like that. You can play around with the themes. Okay. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have Pisces rising. Jupiter's moving into the 3rd house. So this could be like fortunate thoughts, right? The 3rd house being connected to our thoughts and the fluctuation of our mind. Or it's also related to the surrounding and everyday environment. So could this be like positive environment? This is a year where you're just going to have a really positive, active environment where things are growing all around you. And it's just a positive thing. Okay, well, that's what I have for today. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Please let me know how you liked the video and some of these slogans. Don't razz me too hard. It's very hard to come up with slogans that are not cheesy, but play with it. Figure out where Jupiter is moving into in your birth chart, what house it's moving into, and think of that positive growth and abundance topically, how that could maybe be showing up for you in your lives. Okay, we'll be back again soon with another astrology video. Hope you have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.